back to Behind the Harvest podcast. We're so glad you decided to join us. If you would click subscribe, like this video, share it with someone that you think it would be impactful for, and that would be so vital to growing our channel and getting this message out. Also, leave a comment and let us know, is there a topic that you want us to talk about on a future episode of Behind the Harvest podcast. But we're continuing our testimony series today. You guys seem to really like those. And we are here with the incomparable, the legend, the savage, Sarah Dobson. How are you, Miss Sarah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Yes.
And I have to tell this story about Miss Sarah for people that don't know. So the first time that I met you, you came into my office and there were a list of about 10 questions that you had.
Right.
And we sat and with your husband, Mr. Kenny, and we talked about all 10 of them. I don't know how long we were in that office in that meeting, but we talked about all 10 of them. And from that point forward, I had such a great appreciation for you.
Oh, thank you.
And the reason why is because most people, I think this is true, most people will hear things and assume that it is true.
Mm-hmm.
And you took the time to come and gain clarification. That gave me tons of respect for you. And now you're my adopted grandmother. And I have taken you on multiple flights over Myrtle Beach in our helicopter, and it's been an amazing relationship. And so we throw that in there.
I know, it's been great. And that helicopter ride is just one of the highlights of my life. It really is. So thank you for doing that.
Of course, of course. Well, we have some really, I think, important topics that we want to talk about. And when I think about this, when I sent you the questions, we were going to talk about PTSD and all that. But I want to start with, you have such a group of young people, our church, that absolutely adore you and Mr. Kenny. And I'm talking about 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds. I mean, and older people do. But, I mean, you're what?
77.
Well, why do you think you have that kind of impact on the younger generation that you have?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess because I have so many grandchildren and so many great-grandchildren, and I just love people. And I remember saying to these young people at one point in our church, don't give up.
Yeah.
You know, this is a tough day, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Don't leave the church. Don't abandon your faith because somebody's hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And I truly love these people. I feel the love from them. I had a young lady come up to me one day when it was pouring down rain. We were soaking wet when we got in the church. And she said, I just admire you so much. I said,
wow.
What? And she said, well, you came to church. I said, but why wouldn't I come to church? She said, well, it's pouring down rain. She said, I almost stayed home myself. So, we love our church. We love our church family.
Yeah.
And these young people have made us feel loved. So it's a two-way street.
Well, when you think about the type of impression that you have made on all of, and I would say us, I guess I can still consider myself a young individual.
You can, for a while.
For a while. Those are the types of things that leave legacies, that people will look back and say, man, she impacted my life so much. And when you think about your children, your grandchildren, and all of your adopted children and grandchildren and adopted spiritual great-grandchildren and all of these things, I mean, have you ever considered the type of legacy that you're leaving? Have you ever thought about that? Is that important to you? And if so, why?
It is important. I hope that when I'm not here anymore, that my family and people that I've known in my life will realize how much I've loved them.
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't think about how much that person cares.
Yeah.
But when I tell you I love you, I truly love you.
Yeah.
And it's like if you've gone through a divorce in your family. My former daughter-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
I love her.
Yeah.
You know, just because she's divorced from my son
Yeah.
doesn't mean I don't love her. I truly love her.
Yeah.
And I believe she loves me. So you just don't throw people away,
Yeah.
just because something bad happened. You just keep on loving them.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if you don't love them after things like that happen, then you never really loved them to start with.
Mm. Yeah.
So, and I'll get back to what you said about the 10 questions I had for you.
Yeah. Go for it.
I want to revisit that for a minute. When we first came back to Conway, we lived away for about 25 years.
Yeah.
I was so excited to come home
Yeah.
to my church,
Yeah.
my church family. And as soon as we got here, you may want to edit this out. I don't know.
No, we just roll with
But
it.
as
This
soon
is
as
all
we
you
got
do.
here, we started hearing negative, negative, negative about the new pastor.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to go see what this guy looks like, what he can tell me,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't like gossip.
Yeah.
And I think I'd be the last person in the church to start gossip.
Yeah.
If you know me well, and I think you do. It's something I don't like. So when I went to talk to you,
Yeah.
every answer that you gave me, I knew was straight from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that. And we made a connection that day.
We did.
We made a connection because I felt like you were very honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
And from that day forward, our relationship's grown and very positive. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's one of those things when when people have questions, uh, you can answer honestly, and even it may not always be what they want to hear.
Right.
It may not always be what they agree with. However, you always want them to know that what your answer is, you truly believe in.
Right.
It's really from your heart. It's a conviction.
Mm.
And I haven't met too many people with a conviction where I might be like, I don't know if I agree with that, but I got to believe the best about that individual because they have some sort of conviction about the direction they're going, what they're doing. And, and I think that that's admirable when people live with a
Absolutely.
conviction,
Mm-hmm.
even when other people disagree with it, don't understand it. Jesus was willing to be misunderstood.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
we can do the same thing. But that's the honesty of the conversation, is sitting down and just having a conversation. It may have been 5 of those things that you didn't agree with or you didn't understand or whatever. I don't know. But what you did is, and I think this is why you have such, you may not realize this, but I think this is why you have such a, um, have been endeared by so many people, is because you truly believe the best about people.
I do.
Yeah.
I try my best to not see the negative
Mm-hmm.
and to see the good in everybody, because everybody has some good.
Yeah.
I really believe that there's some good somewhere. It may be buried. It may be not show up, but everybody has some good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if you're going to have all kinds of people listen to this. So if you're going to have um, parents of children, that are, elementary school, middle school, all that. You're going to have parents of really young kids. You're going to have young families or wanting to be young families listen to this that may not have kids yet or whatnot. What's something that you would, if you had one message to those people, what would you tell them?
first of all, I would tell them, if you're not in church, find a good Bible believing, God centered church.
Mm-hmm.
Get your children in church from a very young age, from day one, and keep them there. Make sure that they know who God is,
Mm-hmm.
who Jesus is.
Yeah.
Make sure they know what's right, what's wrong. And I think that's important. I was a preacher's kid.
Mm-hmm.
And people have said to me over the years, "Oh, I bet you hated that." I did not hate 1 minute of it.
Mm.
We were always involved in the church.
Yeah.
But my dad was the kind of pastor that family was important too. So he didn't just abandon us to go do everything else. We were important to him.
Yeah.
And he was a great example of
Yeah.
what I feel like helped me to understand more about how God loves me.
Yeah. That's good.
So I think if you have family, small children, if you haven't started bringing them to church, and this is not a sermon, but I just feel like it's important to get your children involved.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: we have 2 great grandchildren that have started coming to our youth group.
Mm-hmm.
And the first night that our grandson went, we had a conversation about, how do you know? Are you really saved? Are you really going to heaven?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ladies in our group that night, she said, "Well, all this stuff we talk about now, all the things that's going on in the world, is not really important.
Yeah.
What's important is make sure your name's in the book."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've used that term so many times with some people since then, because make sure your name's there. Take
Yeah.
your children, make sure they know, how to make sure their name's in the book.
That's right.
So that resonated with our young grandson, and he made a profession of faith. He said,
Yeah.
"I know now." He went the next day and prayed, and he said, "I know now." So children need to know how to be saved. They need to know who to call, who to talk to,
Yeah.
and how important it is.
That's right.
So church to me was always the center of our family.
Yeah.
We were always, you didn't get up and say, "Oh, I don't feel good today. I think I'll stay home." No, you better be having a temperature of about 110 because you were going to church.
That's right.
And I never resented that. I've always loved being at church.
Yeah. I think I have too. Same thing. I remember my mom would play the organ, and I remember even on Saturdays, she and I would go shopping, and then she would swing by the church and go and practice all the music on the organ in this big worship center. Seats 1,100 people,
Oh, wow.
pews and all that, and that those kind of things were just never an option.
Mhm.
For us. I mean, I remember we got a new basketball coach in middle school, and he said, "All right, we're having practice on Wednesdays," and well, that was church night,
Mhm.
even in the '90s. And I remember my dad and about 4 or 5 other dads went to him and said, "Coach Brown, like my son's not going to be at practice. We have a visitor. It's okay. We'll just keep it rolling." This is Leia, everyone. She's making her debut, but and he said, "Well, if your kids don't practice, they're not going to play." And they said, "Well, then
Not gonna play.
they're not going to play."
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand that then, but I appreciate it now.
Right.
In making those kind of things priority, because it's not just about going to church; it's also teaching kids to be part of a community and being with a group of people. And so I always enjoyed going to church as well. And even though I'm a pastor, I still enjoy going to church, and all that stuff. So I think that's great. I mean, I want to say one last thing on this, and we're going to move on. Uh, so I had a great grandmother. Her name was Mimi, and here's the best memory that I had of her. But I think it paints a picture of how I view you. She had a hard time walking toward the end of her life, but I remember I loved Batman and Robin, and I wanted to play Batman and Robin. And this is back in the day where they didn't make the fancy capes. You just tied a towel, a blue towel around, and she would be Robin and tie a yellow towel around her. And I remember Mimi would get her walker, and we would go outside underneath this big oak tree in her yard, and she would sit there in her yellow towel while I ran around in my blue towel playing Batman, and she would play Robin. And what it was is that she was an individual that would enter into your world
Mm-hmm.
and care for the things that you cared about. She was loved and endeared in our family, and I think that's why you're loved and endeared in our family.
Thank you.
Because you're a person like that.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate you.
I'll be Batman though. I'm not gonna be Robin.
I don't blame you. Robin was kind of lame anyway, but that's but it's okay. So, I think that there is something you talked about, somebody saying, "Oh, it was raining and you're here at church and all that kind of stuff." And I think it speaks to something that my generation and probably younger generations lack, that your generation uh, has, and that's resiliency. This ability to bounce back. Um, how would you define resiliency in your own words?
Well, it is the ability to bounce back, and I've had to do that a few times.
Yeah.
um, Probably the one time I remember the most is in my career. I worked for 3M for a few years for a dealer, and then the parent company transferred me to Atlanta and gave me a great opportunity to go to that particular. I thought was a great opportunity.
Yeah.
My children also learned resilience because we had to move in April in the middle of the school
Oh,
year,
wow.
and they didn't miss a beat, so they've learned that too. But I was in that one division for about a year, and then they started selling off all the divisions to dealers. So then I lost that job, went to a different dealer of a different uh, part of the company, and I was there for about a year, and they sold that to a dealer.
Oh, wow.
So then they moved me to another. It was just one thing after the other.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was downsizing the company. They didn't tell us they were doing that, but they were doing it. So resilience, yeah, every year I was moving to a different, learning a new job, doing
Yeah.
something different, and that was hard.
Mhm.
And knowing I had my children to take care of,
Yeah.
and that was it. So that was one thing. And then I know that a lot of people know this. I did have cancer last year,
Mhm.
and I did fine. I didn't know I had cancer. It was a God thing. God just showed that in a miraculous way.
Yeah.
Went to the doctor for something totally different, and they did a CAT scan, found out I had the cancer. Went through that, just sailed through it.
Mhm.
Never had pain or anything until I took some treatment for it that said was going to save my life. And after 2 of those treatments, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And there were days when I didn't think I was going to live.
Yep.
So I decided not to do the treatments anymore
Hmm.
and just let God handle it. So if
Yeah.
I'm here for a year or a month, at least I'm not going to be sick while I'm here.
That's right.
So,
We had some of those conversations.
oh, we did, because I thought I can't do this anymore. But God can take care of it,
Yeah.
and He's been there for me my whole life.
Yeah.
I haven't always been there for Him,
Hmm.
but He's been there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And you're cured.
Absolutely. And when they told me I might live 13 months, it's been 18 months, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
They don't know when I'm going to die.
No, they don't.
And I told my granddaughter that was upset because I stopped the treatment, and she said, "I want you to live." I said, "I do too, but I don't want to live sick.
That's right.
I want to feel good." So I told her, if I die, I'm going to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
And if I live, He's going to be with me.
That's right.
And that's how I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm here. You're going to put it with me for a long time.
I'm good. I'm glad. I'm very, very happy that you're here. And I you know, I need you to live long enough so that we can dedicate the children's wing of the Harvest Building to the Dobson Center for Children. And I've told you that, and that's what we're going to do. And I've decided it. So,
I am so overwhelmed. I just don't even know what to say when you tell me that.
well, it needs to happen. And fortunately for you and me, I can make that happen.
Well, yeah, you're the pastor, you're the boss, right?
So, talk to me when we talk about resilience. It's one thing to have it, but what are like daily mind shifts, daily, um, what am I trying to say here? Mindsets or habits that you have that have helped cultivate resilience in your life.
Well, you asked me to talk a little bit about PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, um, I had a very abusive husband
Mm-hmm.
for 11 years, and there were days people say, "Oh, you don't have PTSD. You didn't go to Vietnam, or you didn't go to Afghanistan, or you didn't do this." PTSD can come from a lot of things,
Yeah.
and people don't understand it. If you haven't lived with somebody that has PTSD, or you haven't had it yourself.
Yeah.
So that is a daily commitment. My husband is a Vietnam veteran, as you know, and he has PTSD. And I've thought about this many times. I think God was preparing me through those turbulent times that I lived through. You know, he goes way ahead of us. He already knows what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he was preparing me to understand my husband
Mm,
and where he is in his walk and where he is with his flashbacks.
that's right.
So together, sometimes we were a hot mess, but we managed to make it. His mental health counselor asked me one time if she said, "Do you ever think about leaving your husband?" And I said, "Every day I think about it."
Yeah.
But I don't really. But I think that part of our life is that we've helped each other
Yeah.
because flashbacks are something that never goes away.
Yeah.
And I never felt safe, really safe, until Kenny and I got married.
Wow.
So for the first time in all those years, you're always on guard.
Hmm.
And the one thing that I'd like for people to know if they don't know about me is usually I'm pretty calm, but don't come up behind me and startle me,
Yeah.
because that doesn't go well, because it brings back a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same thing with Vietnam veterans. You know, sometimes you don't know when it's coming. It can be a little thing that
Hmm.
Kenny internalizes his PTSD. He keeps it inside a lot.
Yeah.
If somebody does something to me or I have a flashback of it, I just cry for days.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to describe what is a flashback.
It's
What-
when something happens that reminds you of what happened to you when things were bad.
Okay.
Something, it could be somebody coming up behind me, and I was in the grocery store one day and I was looking to get some juice out, and this big tall man reached around behind me to get something. Instead of saying excuse me, and I just lost it in the grocery store
Yeah.
because I felt threatened.
Yeah.
So anytime you feel threatened,
Yeah.
or anytime something happens that makes you think about what happened, and there's all kinds of PTSD. It can be from physical abuse, it can be from losing a child, losing a home,
Yeah.
it could be anything.
Yeah.
But that's what we do every day. We make a different commitment that I guess that we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
We're going to, stay together. We're going to do what we have to do to make it work.
Yeah.
And I feel like I thought about that a lot. I feel like God was preparing me, even though I was going through some tough times, that I could now understand when He goes through that.
Yeah.
So
That's right. So so every marriage has their challenging seasons, challenging times. I mean, you know that you go through really good stretches. Sometimes you go through rocky stretches. I mean, even Mr. Dennis on this side of the camera, he's been married for a long time. You know the same thing. It happens,
yeah,
right?
it does.
So you talked a little bit about you and Kenny both struggling with PTSD, and we got a lot of young families watching this and people who are married, and every marriage has seasons that are really good and fruitful and joyful and easy, when you're in love. And then you have and every marriage has these, turbulent moments, right? Where you're not communicating well or you're struggling or whatever. But you said something about that you guys just made a commitment with both of you struggling with PTSD that you're just going to stay together. What does that look like, that commitment?
Well, right before we got married, I said to him one day, I said, "I can tell you this, if you leave, I'm going with you." And he said, "Well, if you leave, I'm going with you." I said, "Well, I guess we're just stuck."
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. But we just determined that no matter what, and we've been through some tough times with family and our children at times, things that have happened to our family. But we have made that commitment, and it is a commitment. And I'd like to say that to young people. You think you're young and in love and everything's wonderful. But when you say for better, for worse, sickness and health, richer for poor. We've had some lean times in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some sickness in our marriage.
Yep.
And we've had some great times. We've been so blessed with the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
and our adopted families.
Yeah.
So we've been blessed, but that's a commitment we made to each other that we were going to do for each other and be there for each other, no matter what. And it's not always easy.
No.
There are days when I think, I just want to get out of the house for a while. But I'm sure he does. Sometimes he'll say, I'm going to the garage, and I know that he needs time for himself.
Yeah.
So I would say to young people, when you make that commitment, be sure you know what you're saying, mean what you're saying,
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. Because I think so many times they're just, oh, I've got this $40,000 venue. I'm going to get married and have this wonderful life. And it's not always, it's not
No.
always wonderful. There are days when you are going to have struggles.
Yeah.
But because you have a struggle doesn't mean you just abandon that marriage and leave. And there are times when I feel like it's necessary. In my own case, I feel like if I had stayed in that marriage, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
Because it was a fight for my life on many times.
So I think that's a good clarifying point,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
For the most part, we stick with it.
Yeah.
But when is it the moment where you're like, man, I just can't do this anymore?
That came from the abuse I had.
Yeah.
I just knew that if one of us didn't go, the other person was probably not going to survive.
Yeah.
So there were days I was in a fight for my life.
Yeah.
Literally. And I don't want to go into all that because it just brings up a lot of stuff that I don't like to remember. But I would just say this: if you are in a situation, in a marriage where there is abuse and you've tried to work things out and it continues, I don't believe God expects us to live in that environment.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe in divorce. I think it's a horrible thing. But there are times when it's better. It's just better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't give up. Don't get mad and leave because he parked the car in the wrong place or she ran over a sprinkler in the yard or whatever happened. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about if you have real issues that you just can't overcome.
Yeah. So when we talk about resiliency, we talk about PTSD. What role has your faith in the Lord and your church community played in helping you with both of those?
Well, my faith got me through everything and does it on a daily basis. I don't know how people live. There's a song I think says, "I don't know how people live without the Lord."
Yeah.
I don't know how people live without that faith.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had faith in God, and I'm so thankful for my Christian home that I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
that taught me to have faith and taught me, ask for God's will, seek Him.
Yeah.
And have I always done that? I haven't.
Yeah.
But the older I get, the more I understand that that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think so many times if young people, when they're getting married, thinking about getting married, um, if they would make sure they seek God,
Mm.
is this His will for me? Is this the person He's picked for me? And some people may not know this, but Kenny and I met when we were in 5th and 6th grade.
Great.
And we knew each other for 4 years. And then his dad went to Vietnam. And then they moved away. We lost contact for many years, but I never forgot him. He was my friend. He was my childhood sweetheart, I guess you'd call it. And so when we reconnected, we realized that if we had listened, and if we'd been older too, you didn't have communication like you have now.
Yeah.
If we'd been older and been able to stay in contact with each other, things might have been different. We might have been married from day one,
Mm-hmm.
but that would have changed the whole complexion of our life.
Yeah.
So, that's where we are. We just reconnected, and as soon as I heard his voice, I told my friend, I said, "I'm getting married." She said, "Who are you going to marry? You don't date anybody. You don't go out anywhere." I said, "God's got somebody for me."
Yeah.
And I knew when I heard his voice that That was my person.
That was your person.
Yep.
And he's going to be your person for
Forever, for eternity.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Sarah, you are a treasure.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for you. I'm thankful for you and Mr. Kenny. And I know that there are a lot of people that would echo that sentiment as well. And so I would just want you to feel honored. I want you to feel honored on our podcast. And I want you to know that we all love you. We're thankful and we love you for who you are. But we love you because the things that we talked about, right? Leaving a legacy, supporting people, being resilient, overcoming PTSD. These are things that you not only talk to us about, but you show us. And so your walk matches your talk. And we have great respect for you.
Thank you so much. You don't know, you have no idea what it's been like to have you for our pastor.
Well, thank you.
I've been in a lot of churches in my life, moving around from place to place. But I just have to say I've learned so much from you.
Thanks.
And I'm so proud of you.
Thank
you.
I
know you don't want to talk about this.
No. I don't have whatever you want.
But I want everybody to know this is Dr. Sorrows now. And we're so incredibly proud of you. And I know you don't want to talk about that. And I understand that.
Appreciate that.
You don't want to draw attention to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're very humble and you don't want to draw attention to yourself, but you need to draw attention to that. That's a great thing. And I'm very proud of you.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I'm proud to sit under your ministry.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm proud that you're a part of it.
Thank you.
And next time I take the helicopter up, I'll call you.
Please do. I just want to fly it.
We can do that too. That's fine. But I appreciate you being on here. I know there's going to be a lot of people on the other side of that camera that appreciate you being on here, appreciate your life. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a great honor. I was a little nervous when you called me and asked me to do this, but
you did great.
Thank you.
A+.
Thank you.
Well, hey, thanks so much for checking us out today on Behind the Harvest podcast. If you would, subscribe and like, share, comment. Please let us know if there's something you want us to talk about on the podcast. We would love to do that. And until next time, God bless you.